I almost caught myself saying something Obama says, let me be clear. Let me not say that. Because usually what he says after that is pretty muddled. We're at war here for Texas. Texas is under assault from federal encroachment of powers. But also, I need to bring you, I'm going to have to do this, and I know there's going to be some people in the room that are not going to be happy about this, but this is what I do. This is what you want me to do. I'm going to tell you about what's going on in Austin because there is an agenda and it has nothing to do with you. I was really disappointed with 101 supermajority that the conservative agenda was barely advanced. Now, they passed some things that were no-brainers that were holdover business from the previous session. And I'm looking at sonogram and voter ID and, the same things that you'll see them going around talking about. Because they don't want you to know what they didn't get done. What they didn't get done was they failed to pass an anti-Sharia law here in Texas. Failed to pass it. Didn't even want to consider it. They failed to pass the TSA anti-groping bill, which is a Fourth Amendment issue. Now, we were there that day when that whole meltdown happened. The House had passed it with no holds barred, 138 to something. It might even have been 0 because I know there were a lot of people that didn't vote that day. Yeah, it was unanimous, right? 138, right, votes. Passed it, got into the Senate. The Senate had 30 out of 31 votes lined up. Dan Patrick is at the front, and he's giving he's reading it. He's going on about, why we need to pass this. Onto your floor of your house in your capital, bought and paid for by you, comes a little middling bureaucrat, accompanied by Dewhurst. Onto the floor, People's Senate. And he's carrying a flimsy little piece of paper, and it says that Texas, because they couldn't guarantee the safety of people if they were not allowed to grope you and feel you up, we all know how effective that is, that since they couldn't guarantee your safety, they were going to go ahead and they threatened to shut down air travel in and out of Texas.
Bring it on.
Spoken like a true Texan man, they should have said, bring it on. Try us. Try and shut down air travel out of your own economic engine for the entire country and see how well that works for you, America. They should have fought back. There should have been a riot of our senators. They what?
They bluntly folded.
That's exactly what happened. And you guys, they folded so fast, your head was spinning. I've never seen so much cowardice. And I'll tell you right now, there was a senator who blockaded himself in his office and locked himself inside his office against his constituents who were there to give him a piece of their mind. Okay, Texan? Is that Texan to you? No. That's what happens when they were faced with a tough choice. This was the caliber of people that we elected and put there. Within minutes, it went from 30 votes for to only 11. And the whole thing died. So then it got brought up very reluctantly in the special session. And I'm not going to go into it, but there was so much finagling between Perry and Strauss and everything that was going on behind the scenes to make sure that that bill was dead before it even came up. And they killed it, they squashed it before Strauss got up there and called a quorum, said a quorum was present, and then said we can't vote because we don't have a quorum. Part of the issue that we had with our legislators going into the entire Strauss speaker showdown was we had intelligence to know how Strauss managed his business, right? Do you all know who Joe Strauss is? Speaker of the House? Okay. You know that in the previous session, he was elected by 65 Democrats and 11 rogue Republicans, right? He was handpicked by Democrats to lead in the House. And he reneged on his precious little pledge card And yet our Republicans, our supermajority, couldn't find the guts and the wherewithal to stand up and say, okay, the people have spoken in 2010. It's a conservative-led House. We will get a conservative to lead the House. And they absolutely failed. And the legislation then, it's not about what got passed, it's about what didn't get passed. Okay? There was a lot of business left on the table. We got absolutely nothing done when it came to illegal immigration. Now, I want to talk about that for a minute because we have one of the biggest budget battles coming up in 2013. And you really can't talk about the budget. You really can't talk about education. You can't talk about Medicaid and entitlements without addressing the issue of illegal immigration because it does have a massive economic impact, social and security impact on our state. And yet we have legislators in Austin who are just, I'm not going to do anything about it. They're not going to make any of the hard choices. In fact, there was a bill that all it was going to do was going to provide an accounting and an analysis of how much it actually did cost you, the taxpayers, to support illegal immigrants in Texas. And they failed to pass all it is was an accounting to you. Because how can we deal with the money and the funds if we don't know where it's going? And they failed to pass that. That's people's business. It's our right to know. So when you talk about cutting and slashing the budget, how do you know where to start? You got 60% of the budget going to education, and you've got 36% of the budget going to Medicaid. That leaves 4% left over for the people's business. So we've got to address it. We have to talk about it. Now, the problem coming up in 2013 is that there is a known shortfall built into the budget that's about $7.1 billion. Okay? About 2.3 of kicking the can down the road for education, 2.3 bill, and another 4.8 billion when it comes to Medicaid. Now, I'm going to tell you something that most people don't know because the study hasn't been released and they're not going to release it until after the election, is that Obamacare is now starting to cost states, okay? What they don't know yet is how much. So a study was done to determine how much by the Cato Institute and has been confirmed by the Texas Public Policy Foundation. And I was in Austin and I was meeting with some of the directors at TPPF. And one of them pulled me into her office and she said, you need to know in 2013 that the budget shortfall, which is 7.1, which we all know that number's in our head. In fact, the comptroller Susan Combs conveniently came out last week and said, our rainy day fund is going to be about $7.1 billion. That's convenient because that indicates to you they think they're going to spend the rainy day fund on this year's budget, which means there's nothing left in the RDF. Obamacare is going to cost in this next biennium when we're dealing with the budget that goes into 14-15, $14 billion to the state of Texas, on top of the $7.1 billion shortfall. There's no rainy day fund for this. Now, if all the stars align and you all get Obama out of office and we repeal Obamacare, so we're talking about magic, all the stars aligning, it will only cost Texas $8 billion. That's all, with our shortfall of 7.1. So there is a massive battle coming up because when you look at Medicaid at 38%, 36%, where is that money going to come from? There's only one other place. The 4% and the rest of the budget won't cover. It's education. Think of how much our legislators struggled this year and the outcry and the negative publicity about, oh, they're slashing education. We spend more on education this year than we ever have. On top of that, we have a Speaker of the House that just this week is starting to make noise about raising revenue by increasing taxes. The legislature is going to bring you an option. I'm predicting this and telling you this so that you know, because you're going to choose somebody to go and represent you, and you better hope that they're in the know. You're going to be given a choice. You can either accept a state income tax, or you can take gambling. Now, the budget is going to be such an abysmal mess. What choice do you have at that point? They're kind of taking your choices away because they're telling you how it's going to be. Now, we could go through a whole moral argument about gambling, and that's not what I'm here to do. I'm just here to give you a heads up about what they intend for you. We have to take those options back. There are better ways. Now, remember Rahm Emanuel said, never let a good crisis go to waste. Okay, we have some really, really good people working already on looking at this issue and saying it's unsustainable. The course that we're on is unsustainable. We have to reform education. We have to reform Medicaid, and this is the time. But you have to get people there that are unafraid of their reelection prospects and don't care, because if it just takes one session, we could turn Texas around in one session by doing the right thing and getting people in there that are absolutely unafraid to represent the interests of the people, not the interests of big gambling concerns, and not the interests of the builders, and not the interests of the investors. You guys are investing in, you already have invested in Texas. This is our land. This is our house, and we have to reclaim it. That's our duty. So I wanted to bring that out, and I know it's uncomfortable in here for some people because we're not supposed to know this. There was a legislator that walked up to one of the women who is involved in exposing this, and he said, "We're watching you." That's exactly what she said. She's like, "Well, guess what? I'm watching you." That's the attitude we have to have, unafraid and uncompromising. Because when you have a legislator coming out and telling a private citizen, "We're watching you," he needs to be fired. Okay. I really wanted to just bring you up to speed. It's not the most rah-rah thing I could have said. But I told the people when we were learning this information, and there were other people in the room that were there, and I said, I'm going to get the word out. Because if I don't, when I have a microphone, and y'all have to listen to me, if I don't take every opportunity I have to get the word out, then what good am I? What would you even need to elect me for? You can go and elect someone else, and they can go along to get along. But I already know that I'm marked. I already know that they know who I am. Okay? There's going to be a lot of money flowing away from me and two others because they are not going to want a rabble-rouser troublemaker there. But I think you do. Now, one of the Samuel Adams is of great inspiration to me. And he said, "When that day comes, when vain and aspiring men shall possess the highest seats of government, our nation will stand in need of its experienced patriots to prevent its ruin." That's you here in this room. And that time is now. Not to be a downer, but that time is now. The experienced patriots in this room does not mean I don't have to see your resume and you have to be an attorney. God knows we don't need any more attorneys in Washington or Austin. So I don't need to see your resume. I just need to know that you are experienced in your patriotism and that your heart and soul is for this nation and the people of this state. That's all I want to know. I don't want to think you're in it for yourself. I don't want you to think I'm in it for myself. I want you to trust and know one thing, that you will get the truth from me, that I will give it to you as I see it, unvarnished and unspun, that I will always be accountable to you. And I can back that up because there are 13 other people in this room who are the toughest critics I have ever met in my life. And so I don't go alone. They will be there to watch my back, to watch for you, to make sure that I never step out of line. And that is the board of the Clear Lake Tea Party. They're committed beyond all measure. We used to just send people off and they'll be like, oh, he's a Christian, like Dad did with Jimmy Carter. He'll make right decisions. That's what they're supposed to go there and do, is make decisions, be deciders. And that's not enough anymore. That's just not good enough. And so I have set very specific people in my lives to be watchmen on the walls of my life, to hold my feet to the fire, to hold me accountable, to watch my character, to make sure that my actions line up with my character. Because that's what we need now, is character, not resume. And I know that these toughest people, plain speakers, shoot from the hip, I know that they will not let you down when it comes to me. They will absolutely yell in my face if I were to compromise on the foundational principles of constitutional, smaller government, and citizen representation. So I hope, y'all, that I've given you a little bit of an idea of where I stand on issues and where I intend to go in Austin and who I intend to ally with. I've been there long enough to know who's on the right track and who's not. And therefore, I seek your support, because I can't do it alone. I don't intend to spend a lot of money, but it does take some money to make this happen. And I think it's financially and fiscally irresponsible and ridiculous to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on a job that pays $600 a month. It's not about the money. And you know, if they're spending that much money, there's something else in it for them. Right? So with that said, thank you very much for your time. I appreciate your attention. I wanted to let you know what was happening in Texas and what's coming down the pike for Texans. Because not just for those of us that seek to represent you, but you yourselves will have tough choices to make. And it'll be conversations at the kitchen table with neighbors. Gambling is a big deal. It's not a small thing. It impacts almost every area of our lives. These are going to be debates that you will have with your neighbors. How the money is spent, how we spend it on education, passionate debates with tears. I've already seen some of them. These are going to have to be taken care of. This business will have to be taken care of. So it's not just me. I don't have to just buck up and be strong. Y'all are going to have these same debates. And I want to pull alongside you. We can work together on this. I'd like to introduce Leanne. There she is. Oh, I have to tell you another favorite quote of mine real quick. Thomas Paine said, "If there be trouble, let it be in my day, so that my children may know peace." And I do believe we are in trouble. And I do believe that to look at my children, they have to know that we tackled the trouble in our day so that they can know peace. All right, Leanne, thank you, everyone.